everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my November wrap-up. In November, I read a total of 8 books. So for my genre breakdown, I read 1 nonfiction book, 2 thrillers, 1 horror, 3 young adult fantasy, and 1 young adult thriller. For my rating breakdowns, this was a very good reading month. I read a total of 1 5-star book, 6 4-star books. What the heck? And then I also read a 2.5-star book. So my wrap-ups I always do in the order of my enjoyment. So starting with the books I liked the least and working my way up to the books I liked the most. So starting with that 2.5-star book, that would be The Arrangement by Robin Harding. Oh boy. So this was an adult thriller about a young woman who is kind of at her last straw. She works in New York City and just got fired from her job, can no longer make her rent payments. So one of her friends that she worked with was kind of introducing her to the world of sugar daddies and introducing her to this concept of being a sugar baby and doing these kinds of things to make money by being a sugar baby. So I was like, all right, what the heck is this all about? And I like Robin Harding. I've read another book by her and that I really enjoyed. So I was skeptical, but intrigued. It started off pretty strong, actually. Kind of that beginning where we're first being introduced to the world of the sugar daddy and getting the justifications from our main character as to why she would want to be a part of this world. She's a protagonist that you can at least understand, even if you don't agree with her. And I liked it. I will say, I liked the beginning of this book. Then about halfway through, it turned into a completely different story. It became this murder mystery where our protagonist, who started out as someone we could understand and kind of get behind, becomes this horrible person who makes no rational decisions whatsoever, is so hell-bent on revenge and just being psycho. Like, none of her actions are justified or well explained, and she just becomes somebody completely unrecognizable from the person we were introduced to at the beginning of this book. And for that reason, and that reason pretty much alone, this book became really not a good one for me. It was a total miss. And I think if we had kept our main character likable throughout, I would have probably enjoyed this a lot more because the plot itself wasn't bad. It was just who our main character becomes is so horrible. If any of you have read this book, please leave some comments down below because I'd really love to know if you all thought similarly about the main character and kind of the flip that she makes halfway through the book, because why did she do all of those things? So anyways, 2.5 stars for The Arrangement. I would not recommend this book. There are better Robin Harding and adult thriller books out there, so this one I would say skip. The next book, these are all 4 stars, so take my kind of ranking with a grain of salt. It's hard to rank these books now that they all have the same ratings, but I'll start with Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater, which is her newest release and is a spin-off series from the Raven Cycle series that I loved and adored. Like, this series is one of my favorites of all time. So I was so excited when Maggie Stiefvater said she was releasing a new spin-off series based on Ronan from the Raven Cycle series. And I will say, I really liked Ronan in the Raven Cycle. I didn't like it as much this one. I don't know what it was, but he did not connect with me as much as he did previously, and I think maybe the supporting cast didn't let him shine quite as much as the supporting cast in the Raven Cycle, but I liked some of the other supporting characters a lot more. Like, Declan was one of my favorites. I really enjoyed Jordan in this book. She was great. So I was kind of surprised that Ronan became this character that I still liked, but definitely wasn't my favorite. I would say the plot for this one, it's a great setup book. I'm definitely excited to continue on with the series. It's just not the strongest. I definitely prefer the Raven cycle so far. So this was a 4-star for me. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'll have a separate review just for this book, so I'm not going to go too much more into it, but would recommend if you enjoyed the Raven cycle. You should read the Raven cycle first. It does have a lot of references to the previous series in this book. The next book I'm going to talk about, I have a full review for already, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it here. I can't even hold it, it's so heavy. It's It by Stephen King. Lord have mercy, this book, oh my God. This is a beast of a book, and it was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. I'll start off by saying that. So if you are intimidated by this book because you think you're going to be too scared, don't let that stop you. If you're intimidated by its size, that I can understand more. This book drags on for far too long. I think it could have been a lot shorter. I think we could have cut out a lot of the character development of the side characters and focused more on our core group of the Losers Club, who I loved. But I think a lot of this was kind of just filler that didn't seem necessary a lot of the time. So I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I read it, and I can't wait to read Stephen King's other books now that he's kind of set up this multiverse that I'm very intrigued by. But this book was not a new favorite, so I don't know if I'll ever reread it, but I'm glad I read it. So if you want to watch my full review, you can do that, and I'll link it down below. The next book I also have a full review for, so I'm not going to go too much into it, and that was Sadie by Courtney Summers. This was a young adult thriller that I rated 4 stars about our character Sadie, who her younger sister is murdered, and they never find out who the murderer was, but Sadie knows who it was, and she disappears after her sister's murder to go and find her murderer. And it's kind of flip-flops between 2 different perspectives of Sadie and her journey on this revenge story, and it also has the perspective of this radio show that is broadcasting this story of the sister's murder and Sadie's disappearance, and kind of we flip between that radio show and Sadie's journey. I really enjoyed it. I have a full review, so check that out if you want to know more about it. I definitely recommend this, especially for fans of The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. It reminded me a lot of that. So if you enjoyed that book, or that book's been intriguing you, I definitely recommend Sadie. The next book I have is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, which, you guessed it, I also have a full review for. So once again, kind of skimming here. This book follows a girl who is this expert painter in this world where humans and fae coexist. So we have a fae world, but it's kind of out of the limits of the humans to traverse to. However, the fae can traverse to the human world as they please, and they often do because fae in this world can't do anything that they call craft. So any sort of creative outlet like writing, cooking, reading, anything creative, the fae actually physically can't do, so they rely on humans for those kinds of luxuries. And so our main character is a painter who paints the portraits of these affluent fae, and she ends up painting the portrait of the Autumn Prince of the Fae and accidentally paints him with human sorrow in his eyes. And in this world, the fae do not experience human emotion. So this breaks a fae law that she is unaware of, and she is taken to the fae world by this Autumn Prince to answer for her crimes. It's a nice little romance. It's short and sweet. It's only about 300 pages or 350. So it's a very quick read, but it's such a sweet little romance. And I just loved the world. I loved that the message in it reminded me a lot of the message in The Giver, where it really explores what it means to be human and how special it is to be human and feel human emotion and to be able to do human sort of creative things like paint and read and write, how important all of that is. So it really explores these themes that I really enjoyed. So I would highly recommend this if you're looking for just a sweet, fluffy, young adult fantasy with fae in it. For fans of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I feel like you would love this book, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. This book I have is Deviate by J. Kristoff, which is the sequel to Lifelike. So I'm not going to talk about this particular book. I will talk about Lifelike since I don't want to spoil anything. I really, really enjoy this series. Both books, Lifelike and Deviate, have been a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I really love the sci-fi world building that J. Kristoff does. All of our characters talk in very strong slang, so it takes a while to get into the world, but once you do, you're completely immersed in it, and I love that about J. Kristoff's writing. This book follows a human who finds this like human robot. I don't know what you call that, like a humanoid? I don't think that's what it's called. I'll find it and I'll put a little picture of it right here. So it follows this woman and her friend who find this human robot, and he kind of exposes the past life of our main character, who doesn't really know where she comes from. She doesn't know her family. So she kind of goes on this journey with this humanoid boy to find the secrets of her past. And I don't want to say anything else because this is such a good book and has a huge twist that I did not see coming. So just go into it knowing it's a young adult sci-fi, a lot of strong world building, very likable characters, and I highly recommend. The next book I have to talk about is The Silent Patient. This one is by Alex Michaelides? I don't know how to pronounce that last name, sorry. So this follows a woman who is happily married, it has a great life, and ends up one night shooting her husband in the face 5 times. And after that event, she never speaks again. And she is put into a mental asylum because they don't know what happened. They know that she committed the crime, but they don't know why because she's not speaking. So we follow our main character is her psychotherapist who is trying to get her to speak again and trying to find out why she did this thing. This seemingly happy, normal woman would commit such an atrocious crime. So this one I had really high expectations for because I've heard a lot of great things about it. The premise of it sounded so intriguing. And so I will say that I rated it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and I did not see the twist coming. It did surprise me, so I'm happy about that. But I will say I docked it a star because the twist, when it was told, it didn't make me go like, oh my God, it was kind of just dropped. And then, I don't know, I didn't feel strongly about the twist. I didn't feel strongly about any of the characters. I didn't find them very compelling and I wasn't on the edge of my seat. It didn't wow me like some of these other books and their twists have. This twist, it happened and I was like, okay. And then we just moved on. And I don't know how else to explain it except that. If you've read this book, please leave some comments down below because I'd love to discuss it. I'm curious to see if anyone else felt similarly about the twist where they were just kind of like, cool, but like underwhelmed, I guess is the right word. Underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed. Yes. So I would still recommend this book, especially if it intrigues you, but there are better thrillers out there, I think. Last book is my favorite book that I read this month, 5 stars, and it was my non-fiction book. I'm shocked. This was definitely the biggest surprise. It is called Why We Sleep, and it is a non-fiction book all about, you guessed it, sleep. So I have always been fascinated with sleep and like how much sleep we need, what it really does to our bodies, why do we dream, all that sort of thing. And this book goes so deep into science behind why we sleep and why we sleep the way we do. It goes into kind of how sleep changes in the different phases of our lives. I think that this book definitely will change my life. I'm going to look differently on sleep for the rest of my life. And I think that everyone should read it because you can't believe how important sleep really is. And there are so many things that I didn't know. And, you know, kind of halfway through this book, I was like, okay, how much more could he possibly tell me? Like, do I really need to read the rest of the book? Like, yeah, he's told us sleep is important. Got it. What else do I need to know about that? But really, read the rest of the book because it's so interesting. He goes into like how animals sleep and how that differs from how humans sleep and why, and kind of the evolution behind sleep and kind of why we've evolved with sleep the way we have. It's so interesting. So I just highly recommend that everyone read this. I think it's really, really important for not only your health, but for your friends' health, for your family's health. Pass on this message because you can't believe, I mean, if you don't sleep for at least 8 hours every night, he says that your chances of stroke, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, heart disease, heart attacks, diabetes goes up tenfold. And even things like mental illness and depression, all of that is affected by sleep. Read this book. It's so important. And I promise you, you will look differently about the way you sleep. You will prioritize it, and you will make your friends and your family prioritize it as well. So loved this book, could not recommend it enough. Definitely the biggest surprise of the month for me. Those are the 8 books that I read in the month of November. What were some of your favorites and your least favorites? Leave some comments down below. Have you read any of these books? I'd love to talk about them, so make sure you leave a comment for me because I love to discuss books with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it that thumbs up and subscribe. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And until next time.